Hey everyone, hopefully you all have been having a great week. We've been having a good one here, getting over this little part one of the eye surgery thing and then getting ready for part two, which will happen in July. Just some required eyelid surgery that my doctor wanted me to do. Nothing serious, but that is just part of getting older. So, anyways, enough about that. This is Tom from Cerulean Bay, and this is Tropical Escapes at Home. And we're going to wrap up our little mini series on Tiki today. This is the section where we were talking about the design elements of Tiki. A lot of people are not aware that within the world of Tiki, we have been able to identify about 7 different looks. And in our last episode, we did talk about the authentic traditional Polynesian or South Pacific look, where you can really focus on the historical aspects of pieces that you find, actual Tiki carvings and replicas of those, and then just historic, authentic artwork, which fall under that true Tiki decor. And then we also talked about the retro look that we know here in the States from the 50s and 60s onward. That is more your traditional tiki bar, tiki hut look, tiki restaurants, the things that we're familiar with here in the States. That is actually the most popular look. It's very easy to find the things that you would need to create that look. So we covered some of that. And then we were into the jungle look. And this is where we had talked about people who love the idea of just being lost in that tropical jungle. You want to create a bar or a living space in your home where it just kind of recreates that vibe, and you've got the strategic lighting placed. You've got your warm colors and your cool colors, and you've got some different decor pieces in there that kind of contribute to that whole lost in the jungle look. Well, today we're going to carry that jungle look just a little bit further, and this is where you can get into a true headhunter and cannibal look. And some people might go like, why would I want to do that? Well, the first note is historically, there is truth to this in the South Pacific, particularly in Fiji, which does have a cannibal past. It does go back as far as about 2,500 years ago, and it continued up until the 1800s, which, if you think about it, isn't that long ago. And there were cannibalistic rituals and things that happened, which, uh, unfortunately, for those enemies from neighboring islands that tried to invade and conquer, or for the unfortunate European explorer or maybe Christian missionary, these were the folks that didn't get to go home. But that is a part of Fijian history, and if you should ever travel to Fiji, you can see it in the local museum there in Suva. People that I've talked to who are into art and culture there and the wood carvers and such, they'll tell you quite openly, they freely share their history, there's no shame, that this is what goes into the designs and carvings of their warrior clubs and their cannibal forks and things like this. So there is a lot of beauty that can come out of that part of their past, and some of the other islands from the South Pacific as well, even though they're a little on the violent side, just to be modest about that. But you can bring elements of that in artwork and in carvings into your tiki space. And with the headhunter and cannibal look, this is also now where you get into other pieces such as the shrunken heads. And there's a historical aspect to that as well, which we won't get into in today's show, but you can find these kinds of things online. And when it comes to things like shrunken heads, there are some different sources for different tiki pieces. Some of them will carry these things and some of them won't. Obviously, they're going to be fake, along with any skulls that you get. We want those to be fake too. That's where you can put those on the ends of those bamboo spears. And when you really have your jungle look going on, the goal of it is to create that lost jungle island feeling where you wouldn't want to be shipwrecked. Or again, as I mentioned, that curious explorer who ventured onto that tropical island where the headhunters are waiting. It's not the place you want to go. So there's kind of that element of danger to it. That's what you should really kind of infuse into your tiki space, is that sense of adventure, that sense of danger. And then when you have a couple of the skulls placed and you've got them on those bamboo sticks, and you've got one or two shrunken heads kind of partially hidden in the plant life, or just kind of in a place that might surprise one of your friends or something. Um, that would be really, really cool. You get those hanging from the ceilings or on the walls, and it really does create a very cool effect. And you just include that with anything else that kind of fits that theme, things that you can mount on ceilings and on walls, and just to create that really unique look. Uh, when you get online and you start looking for those Castaway Island looks or kind of witch doctor kind of themes, that's where you're going to find a lot of these really cool things, in addition to the skulls and the shrunken heads that you can use to just add to the look. So, having said that, you do want to make sure that you don't include too many other elements, things from traditional tiki or other tiki themes, because you don't want to take away from it. You don't want your pieces to get lost in just kind of a sea of all kinds of things tiki that are there. You know, when you get into the colored glass floats and the fishing nets and the elaborate light fixtures, a few of these pieces are fine, but again, you want to keep your focus on that whole danger island cannibal kind of headhunter feel there. So yeah, just go easy on the puffer fish with the lights in them, and just the big colorful drum looking lights, which are really, really cool. But everything has its place. Everything has its space. Just make sure everything stays in balance there. And yeah, so when you're trying to create that real element of danger, that tropical castaway island look where nobody survives, that's what you want the focus to be. And yeah, put the focus on the shrunken heads. And of course, then there's the weaponry. If you go on our site, ceruleanbay.com, in our online shop, we have a number of beautiful warrior clubs that are available there. And these are some of the smaller sizes, but they are available in larger sizes, longer than 24 inches. Some of them are available in 48 inches. They're beautiful when you're looking at a 4 foot piece. I mean, these are true pieces of wall art. And when you have them strategically placed in a tiki bar setting, you're going to have a look of authenticity that is going to be the envy of your friends. I mean, they're going to come in and they're going to say, "Hey, this looks amazing. This isn't something that looks like it was put together from pieces from, a Halloween store or something like that." You can really get some really cool, authentic pieces. So there's the warrior clubs, cannibal forks as well. Right now, all the sizes that we have are 12-inch sizes, but you can get them like into 20, 24-inch sizes, and they can be mounted, and they're just really, really cool to see. You have to get into our online store and just check those out. But yeah, you pull together these elements of danger. You're maintaining a bit of historical authenticity with it, and there you've got a really cool headhunter kind of danger element in your tiki bar, which would really, really look cool if that's the kind of look that you're after. Then yeah, you should seriously consider some of these types of pieces and just really focus, even just get a sheet of paper out and do like a little brain dump where you just write out everything that would be associated with that tropical castaway kind of look, and throw in those elements of danger. You think of the witch doctors, and again with the shrunken heads. And if you do happen to be interested in finding out any more about these larger warrior clubs and cannibal forks, just send us a note. Send us an email to inquiries@ceruleanbay.com. I would be more than happy to look into anything that you might be interested in. I can get with the wood carvers in Fiji that I work with. I can get a quote. They're very, very cool people. They're usually very quick in responding. And yeah, then I can get back to you and let you know what you're looking at. Shipping is no longer horrible for us because we are no longer using DHL. For anyone out there who might be familiar with the shipping that we've been doing, it was very, very quick, but DHL is insanely expensive. They've just really spun out of control. And there's just no way we can pass that cost on to our customers. So sadly, we won't be using DHL anymore, and it is back to the United States Postal Service. There is just that risk with the Postal Service that things can be delayed a little bit, and they tend to sit in customs for some reason for a lot longer than usual, but I'm not quite sure why that is. But anyways, so no more DHL. The other thing that I would mention when you get into using skulls and shrunken heads and having those things prominently featured, and then using associated weaponry like spears and warrior clubs, one thing you want to be careful too is not going too heavy on the number of skulls. There's just a certain look that you want to create. We have some imagery in a very good blog post about this. We're very proud of that blog post because we've got great imagery in there. But when you start to have too many of those things, it can start to look like a bunch of Halloween decorations, which is what you don't want. So there is a balance. Just try not to have too many of them, where it's looking like a Halloween store or decorations that you would put out, to try to scare the kids in the neighborhood or something. That's not really what you want. It's just creating that element of danger, and these few pieces will speak very well on their own. Trust me. When it's done right, the headhunter cannibal theme really looks cool in a tiki bar space. So moving on from the whole headhunter and cannibal slash jungle look, this is where you can get into the nautical look if you want, and that creates a whole different kind of look for tiki. This is where you're bringing in that maritime or seafaring look. It's that whole life on the open water thing, and there are a lot of elements in that which are very popular in tiki bars. If you think of the captain's wheels and heavy ropes with netting, and then there's the anchors and the brass accents, there's the old diving helmets or those diving bells, wooden oars and paddles, maritime flags. I think you get the idea there. You have those glass fishing floats, the colored ones with the lights in them, or puffer fish. They have those puffer fish that are lit up on the inside too. These are all different things that are very common in tiki bars. They give it a very nautical look, and you can use those pretty much any way that you're styling your bar. If you're just creating a room with elements that are hung from the ceiling and on the walls and displayed on shelves, or, if you're going full on with having kind of some of that jungle scenery in there with a lot of plants, depending on how light or heavy you're going with your overall tiki decor, nautical works really well. It's a very popular look. The one thing I would say about it though is when you're getting into things that are resembling old sailing ships, such as rope riggings and heavy beams or wooden barrels, just start to be careful, because that's when you can start crossing over into the pirate theme, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually going to be the next section here that we get into a bit, because some people do want that pirate element. But if you don't, take some care then to avoid that. And you'll find as you're sourcing the different things that you're going to use in your bar, that more modern maritime looks truly different from historical piracy. So just keep the two looks separate. And I think if you have an idea that, you don't want to get into the piracy look, but you're not too sure how to stay away from it, that's where you just have to pull out one of the Disney movies, the Pirates of the Caribbean, and those are the things that you would want to stay away from if that's not the look that you're going after. So I've seen some really, really good examples of people who've done different tiki bars with kind of a mix where you've got the nautical thing, but it looks like you're on an old wooden sailing ship, and it's actually something that maybe could have been a pirate ship, and now you've got the really cool colored lights and, all the other elements of tiki that we talked about. But it's just a look. It's purely a personal taste, and you're going to have to play with that and see, when is something that I really like now becoming to be too much, or I really like this piece and that piece, but is it now steering me in a direction I really don't want to go? So just keep an eye on that, because it is very easy with nautical, especially historical nautical, to start getting into that pirate look. We actually think the pirate look is pretty cool. It adds an element of fun. Those movies, the Disney movies, were very popular for a reason. If you are into history and you're looking at the actual history of the pirates and what they were doing at the Atlantic and along the Caribbean there, it's actually very interesting. A lot of the imagery used in the movies is, for the most part, accurate. It can create a very cool look, a very adventurous look. Yeah, it's just something that really works, we think, in the tiki bar space. So knowing this about nautical and about the pirate look, maybe you just want to create your space to look like something that was part of an old sailing ship. Or you could even make your bar or space look like something that was involved in a shipwreck, depending on how you place those wooden beams and wooden panels on the walls, or how creative you can get with the use of any historically inspired pieces. Just spend some time and put in some careful thought to this, just so that you hit the mark pretty much the first time. Because when you start sourcing things like this, or even if you're very DIY and you're very handy and you start building a lot of this yourself, you still have to buy those initial materials, and then you still have to spend the time to make whatever it is you're going to make. And you want them to come out right from the get go. You don't want to be changing your mind as you go along, and you spend time and money on something and then, oh, this just isn't what I was after. And then what do you do with it? Or if it is something you've purchased, then you have to go through the hassle of returning. So I would go ahead and just really map your design out, put your ideas on paper, as we've talked about before, and just make sure that you're headed in the right direction. Go slowly, procure your pieces, here and there. A really cool tiki bar or space is like anything else in your house when you're really trying to design something, and you just really want it to look nice. You don't need to rush. You want it to come out as perfect as possible. So, yeah, take some time. If you do want to go true pirate, again, I would mention to look at the historical authenticity of pieces and then compare it to what is Disney inspired. You're going to get really great ideas from both ends. Both genres there are very interesting. Obviously, with a movie set, there's a lot of work that goes in there. But yeah, there's a lot of really cool pieces that you can pull together to create that Port Royal kind of look, where you've got the barrels of rum and the treasure chests and cool imagery there that's in some hot, steamy tropical island, and you've got your plants, your plant life, your palm trees, really, really cool lighting that's integrated into all of this very strategically. There's a lot that you can do with the pirate thing. So that's one look that we really recommend looking into as well. And as I mentioned in our blog post, there's some really cool images of work done by an artist who I believe is involved in movie sets. If you go online and you happen to see Philip Freer Design, and it's Philip with two L's, and it's spelled Freer Design, he's got some amazing imagery there that really would be some wonderful inspiration for that pirate look. And he actually, now that I think about it, he offers his services as well. So I'm sure it's not cheap, but for people that do want to create some heavily inspired themes and want to have it done professionally, this guy, from what it looks like on his website, he can do it for you. So yes, Philip Freer Design. Be sure to check that out, even if it's just to get some really, really cool inspiration. So I think with the nautical and pirate theme, you've got some good foundational info there to work with. And getting into our last design element for Tiki is more of the surfer and beachcomber look. And this is where you transition over to Jimmy Buffett, Key West, the parrot on the shoulder, flip flops under a thatched roof on the beach, surfboards. It's the kind of that more of that beachy pastel look with the neutral tones. It's brighter. There's a lot more vibrant pops of color. This is where it's very easy to get into tropical birds, whimsical artwork. Those include the signs with the memes and the names of the cities and how far away they are, those kinds of things, which in all honesty, we're not the biggest fan of. But when used very sparingly, they do really help to create a sense of travel and a bit of adventure when you're sitting at a really cool tiki bar or in a nice tiki space. Just go very sparingly with them, because if you start to use too much of that, honestly, it just starts to look cheap. There's just something tacky about it. So yeah, be careful with the goofy signs, anything with the memes. But what really works well too is a really cool neon sign. If you can find one that's maybe from like an old beer brand, or something just like a lit up Corona bottle with a lime on the edge of the bottle, or just something fun like that. Neon signs are fun, so you can really get into those. Other design elements are obviously seashells. If you have the option of having any kind of a seashells, pelicans, thatched roofs, I think you get the gist of that. It's really a day at the beach thing. Tiki torches fit very well into this, and you can find some other really cool pieces. We love driftwood. If you can find anything made of driftwood, that's something we would love to source for our store. But to find really good quality pieces, it's not cheap. So, yeah, if you can find any really just nice pieces or artwork made from driftwood, very, very cool. This whole design style also, just as I mentioned, tends to use the lighter colors. So your space is just not going to be dark. It's typically not as intimate. It's more fun and beachy. True tiki colors tend to be very bold. When you're getting into this look, you have less of that. It's more sun bleached, because everything is outside and just gets bleached in the sun. But yeah, if that's kind of the type of theme that you're after, something that's a little lighter, something that's a little bit more fun, there's no real element of danger to it, but you get the sense that you've traveled, in Key West if you've been lucky enough to get there, or on the beaches of Mexico. Again, very, very common, very flip flops under the thatched roof hut kind of look. You can really create some cool tiki looks with this. Bring in elements of tiki like the little statues themselves. Keep that little influence of the South Pacific or Polynesia in there, just to really bring home that true tiki flavor of the whole thing. That's what really helps to just at least bring in a little bit of authenticity. We're all about being as authentic as possible here, and even though these are all recreations, what we're talking about in these spaces, you can be at least authentic in the way they look as much as possible. And it does bring in that added wow factor. It helps you to stay away from things that look cheesy or tacky or touristy. You just want these spaces to be as inviting as possible, and to just be conversation pieces. You want them to be things that your friends and family are looking at going, wow, this is really cool. It's not like something we've seen in someone else's backyard or out by the pool or in somebody's basement or in their garage or whatever space they've used to create their tiki space. It really does look like something that you took a lot of time and effort to create. And that's what you want. You just want it to be as legit as possible. So hopefully, as we conclude our little mini series here on Tiki, that you have found these last few episodes to be helpful. It really is a design style that is of its own. There's nothing else quite like it out there. The history of Tiki itself is just fascinating. It's interesting to see how we got to where we are in this country with Tiki, where it came from in the 30s and 40s, and how it evolved into, or how it became this piece of Americana back in the mid-century, and to what it is today. But we hope that we've been able to give you just lots of inspiration and ideas. As you'll hear us say a million times, get online, do your research, check out our website, ceruleanbay.com. As you come across other sites, bookmark those. Just a ton of inspiration out there. If you're on Facebook or on Instagram, look up things with Tiki and you're going to get a lot of great visuals there. Pinterest is another great place to get a ton of ideas. So there you have it. From the traditional Polynesian to the classic retro to the headhunters and the pirates and the nautical look and the surfers, Tiki is just cool. It's laid back. It's relaxing. It's just fun. And when you create your space with a particular theme that really works for you, it will come to life in ways that you didn't expect. It's just one of those things that maybe you've imagined for a long time, and now you're carefully planning it out in great detail. And then when you're finally done with it, you realize, wow, this looks so much better in real life than what I even imagined, because you can tweak it as you go. You can modify it. You can improve on it. You can just move forward with it. So go ahead, create that tiki dream space and just go big and go bold. It's worth the time. It's worth the money. It's worth the effort. You and your guests are just going to love it. So we're going to go ahead and close out here. Join us next week for another fun episode of Tropical Escapes at Home. We've always got so much that we want to share with you. In the meantime, visit us at ceruleanbay.com. Check out the show notes for today's episode. I will put the link to the blog post in there again, and because we just want to make sure that you don't miss it. And visit us on Patreon. We have our different tiered membership levels there, and we truly do appreciate your support. So until next time, just have an awesome week. Hopefully the weather is great where you are. It's absolutely beautiful in Houston right now. So until we meet again, just take care, enjoy life, and have fun. We'll catch y'all later. Take care. Bye-bye.